Thank you very much, Laura, and welcome everybody. It's lovely to see you here. As Laura said, my name's Louise Ritchie and I'm the lead for the Working with Dementia Network Plus. It's almost a year to the day, actually, so I just checked back in my calendar. So on the 26th of February 2025, we had the official launch of the Working with Dementia Network Plus. We thought that this session would be quite timely because we've done a lot within this year and the network's grown. So we thought it would be a really good opportunity to reintroduce the network, because lots of you, I'm sure, have been coming along to these webinars, but perhaps don't fully are coming because you're interested, but perhaps maybe don't know the full scale of what we are planning to do and what we are doing as a network. So we wanted to just take this opportunity to reflect on what we've done over the year, how the network's structured, and then think ahead to the next year coming. So what have we got in the pipeline and what can you expect? And crucially, how can you stay involved with us? As Laura said, our plan is that we'll have another webinar academy series in the autumn of this year, but we want to keep connected with as many people as possible in the period between now and then, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we want to do that later in the presentation. So just to get started, excuse me a second. The Network Plus, as I said, was established at the start of last year. It is an investment from the Economic and Social Research Council, the National Institute for Health and Care Research, and the Alzheimer's Society. And the aim of the network is to collaboratively develop innovative and impactful solutions to create meaningful change for individuals affected by dementia in the workplace. That's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially what we want to do is work together with people with lived experience, with stakeholders, including employees, to think about what are the challenges that people living with dementia who are diagnosed whilst they're in work, family carers who are caring and working while caring for someone with dementia, and also the organisations and the systems that support what needs to happen to ensure that people who get that diagnosis while they're in work or are caring for someone while they're in work, what needs to happen so that they are meaningfully and purposely supported through the workplace. And we try and address the negative experiences that many people report they have in the workplace post-diagnosis of dementia. We are working across three sort of key themes that we've developed. The first one is work and wellbeing. So this is around exploring the relationship between work, health and wellbeing, and trying to explore how individuals living with dementia and their carers can continue to work. We want to understand whether work keeps people well, or if people are well enough to work, and what is the relationship there between how you feel as an individual and psychologically and what you do as a job. The second theme is around inclusive workplaces, and we want to look at what makes a workplace and employment practices inclusive. So we want to collaboratively develop innovative, inclusive employment practices that create labour markets where every individual is empowered to thrive and contribute, and also supported to exit the workplace when the time's right for them. The third theme is around economic costs and benefits, and I think any conversation around work, employers and organisations needs to have an element of understanding what is the cost and what's the benefit to supporting employees in this manner. And our aim is to look at the financial aspects of living and working with dementia from the perspective of the individual, but also from the perspective of the organisations who support them, so that we can model sustainable solutions to continuing work post-diagnosis, and make sure it's clear to the organisations as well that this is something both socially and economically that's worthwhile investing in. Anne-Marie.
Forgive me if I've got this wrong, but in my experience, the under retirement age, because let's face it, it's not 65 anymore, it's 66, right? Under retirement age, when you're diagnosed, by the time you get to your diagnosis and then are given this information afterwards, you might have already lost your job. And once you've left your job, trying to get back into it under different circumstances is going to be extremely difficult. So would this advice and what have you be given prior to diagnosis so that they had that trump card in their hand when they get their diagnosis to give their employer?
So ideally, yes, that would be,
right.
I think.
Okay.
So
just as long as I'm on the same hymn sheet as you.
So I think there's different elements to it, but absolutely, from the research that we've done so far, people need to understand their rights and the legislation around employment before they get that diagnosis, and they need to have access to that. So perhaps it's looking at it through diagnostic clinics or through GP surgeries, that ensuring that when someone comes to the GP with a concern about their cognition, that the GPs are informed enough to signpost them to employment information so that they are aware of their rights as an employee. So I think that is definitely something that we hope through the duration of the network we'll be able to come up with a solution for.
The other thing that I was thinking would be a very good idea is if all of this was available at Citizens Advice as well. Right, because not everybody goes, thinks, should I go and get a diagnosis? No, I don't want to. And what have you? What are the consequences? And also, if you're a carer, you're most likely not going through the memory clinic or the GP. So therefore, you might need to find that information elsewhere. I'm saying Citizens Advice, but I mean, you might know of other places.
I think you're absolutely right, though. It's a really good idea. And I think there are lots of organisations that support people that not necessarily have a diagnosis of dementia, but have a role to play in this. So that's part of, I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second, but part of what we hope will happen as well, that we'll get the right people at the table, I guess, to have the conversations. Thank you. So the work that we're doing and the way the network's been designed is based on 4 key values that are all underpinned by the principles of justice, equity, diversity and inclusion. The first webinar that we had in this series was around those 4 principles that Valerie presented, and that should be available to people that if you want to review it again. So I'll not go back over that information, but the 4 core values that we've developed based on what we already know through different pieces of research that we've done. So we recognise that living a purposeful life is essential for well-being, and that's why this research network is really important, because we know that work provides that sense of purpose for many people, and losing that sense of purpose in that job at the same point as you get your diagnosis is really crucial in how you feel about yourself, and has that sort of double impact at the time. So we are keen to recognise that the importance of work in people's sense of self, identity and well-being. We also believe that a diagnosis of dementia does not necessarily mean an end to working lives, and that's core to everything that we do. We believe that people with dementia can and do continue to make a meaningful contribution to work and society, and that we're committed to challenging the stigma around dementia at work. That's not to say that we assume that every single person who's diagnosed with dementia wants to continue working, but we believe that people can then engage, if they don't want to continue in their job, people continue to engage in different activities that bring purpose to their lives, such as being involved in research projects, being involved in advocacy and influencing work, volunteering, things like that. People still strive to find purpose in their work, in their life, and that's what we believe, that people can still make a meaningful contribution to. As a research network, we believe that a transdisciplinary approach is essential for us to achieve this. So a transdisciplinary approach means that we work in partnership with academics, with people with lived experience, and with stakeholders who have the power to change things on the ground. So organisations like you spoke about there, Anne-Marie, Citizens Advice, employers, policymakers, GPs, we want to try and involve everybody who has the potential to make change and ensure that the research that we support will have real benefit and the impact can be translated quickly as well, rather than waiting 5 years, as a lot of research projects tend to have any impact. So we want to make sure that from the start of the research network and the research projects, that the right people are around the table and working together. We also recognise that we need people coming behind us. We need to ensure that new researchers and new people coming into organisations are trained and supported to continue the good work that we're doing and continue to find meaning in this work and to see a pathway for their research careers within that. So we support researchers as well. So the network itself is set up with 4 different groups. We have our academic team, which is made up of our 5 partner institutions. So we have the University of the West of Scotland, we have Edinburgh Napier University, we have Northumbria University, the University of Lancaster, we have the University of Warwick, and we have our international partners, Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada. We have a lived experience panel, which currently has 9 members. I think some of them are on the call today. We have our stakeholder advisory group. Again, there's 22 members within that, and that represents a range of different organisations, from policymakers to employers to health and social care professionals, people who have an interest in supporting employability, and social organisations that can help and support that work as well. And then we have our Early Career Researcher Forum, which is made up of researchers who are interested in developing careers in this area as well. I think, as I said, we've got some members of each of these groups on the call today. I don't know if anybody wants to reflect on their thoughts of why it's important to them to be part of these groups. You don't have to if you don't want to. I can let you think on it and we come back to it at the end if you'd rather. Anne-Marie?
I was diagnosed when I was 55, and obviously I lost my job. I lost the car, couldn't afford it on benefits, and that narrowed my field of looking for work, but I couldn't find work due to the fact I had dementia. Well, I mean, that was 11 years ago. Things have changed, I hope, right? But I remember the actual financial restraint on me to try. My girls were doing ballet and wall climbing and canoeing, and I couldn't all of a sudden put a stop to all of that for them. So, you know, something had to go. And that, I think, was as bad as having a diagnosis. Like, for me, it was absolutely horrendous. That, you know, because once you've lost your independence with your car, you can't go into Canterbury or Whitstable for jobs because the buses don't run that often. You know, it's yeah. So for me, it's very important that I make those that are coming after me their journey less stressful. And let's face it, we're a society that defines ourselves by what we do. You know, first thing you ask somebody, oh, what do you do? You know what I mean? We define ourselves, and when you've got no definition, you feel as if you've got no definition, no part in society, you've got no place. And so therefore I want to make it better for those that follow me to be able to say, yes, I've got this diagnosis, but I'm still able to do this, do that, and do the other.
Thank you very much,
Does that
Anne-Marie.
make sense? Did I put that
It makes
over?
perfect sense, yes. Thank you very much. I'm really appreciative of you sharing that. Thank you. Did someone else have their hand up? No. Still another hand, but right. No. Just checking, Laura.
No, can't see another hand.
Okay, that's fine. So thank you, Anne-Marie. That was really great to hear your perspective. And actually, I know that you're a relatively new member of our lived experience panel, so welcome. And we're really looking forward to working with you over the next few years as well. Oh, Steve. Yeah, Steve. Oh, you think you're on mute?
Right, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I was getting used to Teams after Zoom. I agree with what Anne-Marie was saying 100%, but there's certain jobs. I was an international truck driver, and when I got my diagnosis, it came completely out of the blue. I got my diagnosis on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and by 3:30, my truck license was gone. The consultant phoned the DVA there and then, and my license was cancelled. Now, jobs like that, you cannot be kept in employment. I understand that. But there are certain roles, if a company wants to, they can make certain roles within the warehousing or even driving small vans or whatever. I still have my car license. But companies, generally speaking, once you mention you have a diagnosis of dementia, they're looking to put you away. Very few companies that I've heard tell of that want to accommodate. In the real world, it doesn't have to be a massive change within a company to keep a person's dignity and to keep them working. It's not too much to ask, but Anne-Marie is 100% correct in trying to make this journey easier for people coming behind us, because there are so many people being diagnosed so fast these days, and especially young onset dementia, which is becoming towards the stage of an epidemic now. And still the government doesn't put funding out there for dementia. So I really don't know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah, so I think it's a really important point that you make there, Steve, as well. I don't know what the answer is going to be yet either, but I hope that over the next couple of years we can get a clearer picture of what the answer needs to be and start to put some pressure on the people that need the pressure to get additional funding and improve, as you both have said, improve the situation for those people that come behind you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just going to move on now. I just want to take a bit of time. One of the key members of our academic team sadly died in the summer last year, and it feels a bit remiss to not just touch on that as we reflect on our year. So Josephine McMurray was one of our partners who worked at the Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada, and she was an integral part to us setting up. She was an integral part to us setting up and applying for the funding for the network. Josephine and I never managed to meet in person, but we had similar interests in terms of research, and we had met a number of times online over the last 5 years or so, and come up with various different plans for how to improve our international learning around dementia and work. We were lucky enough then to work and apply for the funding for the Working with Dementia Network, and successfully did that. So I just want to just take a moment just to reflect and thank Josephine for her contribution. Josephine was a very pragmatic and positive person. She got things done, essentially. And the example of that is the last team meeting that Josephine attended before she became ill. We floated the idea of starting a blog on the Working with Dementia website. Josephine loved the idea, and before the end of the week after the meeting had finished, she'd written a blog and sent it to Laura and I to publish. Unfortunately, our technology and our website didn't quite keep up with Josephine's drive and determination, but we are delighted today that we have now published the blog that Josephine wrote on our blog, and we're officially launching our Working with Dementia blog on the website. One of my colleagues will put the link to the blog in the chat now. But it just, if you have a moment later on, I really would love if you could spend 5-10 minutes just reading the words that Josephine wrote about why it was so important that we do research in this area. And the final sentence in Josephine's blog was, because if we've learned anything from the 97 people who shared their stories with us through the research, it's this: resilience doesn't have to come from having all the answers in a binder. It comes from having the courage to ask better questions and the freedom to act on what we hear. And I think those words of Josephine's really drives all of the conversations that we're having within the network, and will drive the conversations as we go on. We don't need to have all the answers. We just need to know the questions to ask and try and do our best to make things slightly better. And that incremental work will help us achieve our aims. So I just want to encourage you to please spend some time reading the words of Josephine's blog, and just again acknowledge and thank for Josephine's contribution to the network. So we're here today as the 5th in the series of the Working with Dementia Academy. We aimed for the Academy to be the sort of arm of the work that we do as a network to improve the public engagement around working with dementia, and the training that we'll provide to researchers and to stakeholders and to people with lived experience to make sure that we're working meaningfully together. So the webinar series has been our first sort of attempt to improve understanding of what it means to be working with dementia, to challenge the assumptions about dementia and work, both picking up on issues that Anne-Marie and Steve have both raised there, but challenging the idea that actually people with dementia can't continue working, and giving some ideas about what that might look like. We want to use the Academy to raise awareness of the current and emerging research that we have on the network and beyond. And we want to provide the training and support that enables the researchers, people with lived experience, and the stakeholders to work together collaboratively. So this is just a reminder of the webinars that we've had so far. The first webinar was presented by Valerie Egdell and was an introduction to how we're embedding the principles of justice, equity, diversity and inclusion in the network. We then had an example of how Nationwide Building Society and the Dementia UK partnership are improving the practice around employment for people with dementia, supporting customers with dementia and supporting family carers with dementia. In November 2025, we heard from Dr. Anne-Marie Levy and Ryan Thompson on the project that Josephine has written about in her blog. So we got some international research around what a dementia inclusive employer looks like and why is it important that employers take this approach and what are the key things that need to be considered. And then in January, colleagues Lindsay Bengston, Conor MacDonald and Jill Stavert presented some work around dementia with work and the law. So again, making sure that we are raising awareness of the rights of people who get a diagnosis of dementia whilst in employment and equipping people to know what to do if that happens to them. We have carried out an evaluation of the webinars, and I think someone at one of the previous webinars had asked the question, who is attending and who's hearing these messages? So we thought it might be helpful just to show you. We've had 109 unique attendees, so most people are attending more than one webinar. So out of the 4 webinars today, not including today, we've had 109 different people attending, which is great. Most people come to more than one. In terms of who these people are, around about 25% are define themselves as either a health or social care practitioner or someone who works within employment field. So probably people from an HR perspective or employability sort of work. We then, the pink section is nobody, they never told us what they are. So there's about 18% of the participants didn't tell us what their background was. About 15%, so this yellow triangle, are people who have attended, who's attended as an employee, so representing a different organisation and are keen to understand more about dementia in the workplace. The purple triangle is people with lived experience of dementia, so either family carers or people with a diagnosis, so that's about 14% of the attendees. And then we have the 2 sort of grey parts. These are early career researchers or academics, so you could probably count them as people that work in universities, and that makes about 13%. Yeah, about 13% of the attendees. And then the small triangles are in order employer, just under 3%, research funders, so people who work closely with us through the Economic Social Research Council and other of our sister Network Pluses, and the final sort of dark yellow segment is policy professionals, so people that work in government organisations. So ideally, we want to try and increase these 3 or 2 of these 3 criteria, because the people that really need to hear a lot of these messages are the employers and the policy professionals. So my call to you all is, if there's anything that anybody that you know or anybody that you work with or you think needs to hear more about the Working with Dementia Network and the messages that we're sharing, then please tell them about it, tell them about us, and hopefully next year when we have a webinar series, we can do a similar analysis and see if we can increase the number of employers, the number of policy professionals that are coming along and hearing the messages. We asked people in the evaluation, what did they learn from the sessions? So these are all a mixture of the different sessions that we've had so far, but people talked about the different approaches to engaging with the issue of dementia in the workplace. They talked about better understanding of the employer's responsibilities and human rights and the legal protections around dementia. They talked about the role of empathy and the line manager relationship, and they really appreciated hearing the examples of the different approaches that organisations like Nationwide are taking to addressing dementia in the workplace. So there's some really positive feedback. There was very little negative feedback, if I'm being honest, so I'm not presenting a completely biased view. There was some issues that we've addressed along the way around getting attendant or making it accessible. But we have addressed them as we went through, so I'm not going to dwell on too many of the negatives today. We asked people what they would like to see next in the next series of sessions. So these are some of the answers that we've had so far. We are working on trying to put a programme together, but we'd really like to hear from you today. So you can use the chat, or you can stick your hand up, or you can let us know at the end through the evaluation form if there's a topic that you would really like to hear more about in the next year. I'm just mindful of time, so I'm going to move on so that we've got some time for discussion at the end. One of the big things that we're working on, and one of the sort of key focus of the research network, is funding small research projects that will inform the work that we do as a network, and we'll start to get the information that we need to make change in practice. So we're doing this in a number of ways. In this first year, we've funded 3 small scoping projects that you've heard some of. So you heard from Connor at the Dementia and the Law webinar. So he's doing a review of employment tribunal data. We have funded Kira, a researcher at Lancaster University, to do some literature reviews for us. And we have funded Rachel at University of the West of Scotland to do some priority setting, agenda setting that has informed our the sort of themes and the way that we're working within the network. So these 3 projects are coming to an end within the next sort of 4 to 5 months. We will be presenting on these early findings from these projects at our conference next month. And if you're not able to attend the conference next month, we'll be sharing information post-conference about the different presentations, and you'll be able to review and get some information then. But these 3 projects are informing how we go forward with the network. And one of the exciting things that will be happening in 2026 is that we will be launching a call for research funding. These funding projects, or these research funding opportunities, will be launched officially at our conference on the 25th of March. But we will give some more information probably mid-March about what the call looks like and what are the dimensions of the call. But that's just a sort of pre-notice of look out for this information's coming. We are really keen to support early career researchers to work meaningfully with people with lived experience and different stakeholders to start to address some of the challenges and the problems that we've identified so far through the first year of the network. As that part of work develops, we'll then be launching an innovation fund again in 2027, which will help to speed up the process of getting the research findings into practice. So we'll be working with practitioners, with organisations who can make changes and trying to support the implementation of the research findings there. And all of this work will then be pulled together, and we'll develop our Working with Dementia white paper that will set out where we are at the end of the network. And as you said earlier, Steve, it will identify what needs to happen and where it needs to happen in order to improve the experiences of those who are diagnosed or caring for someone with dementia in work. I've mentioned our conference already. So the conference is happening at the University of the West of Scotland Paisley campus on the 25th of March. This is the agenda. It's quite small. You might not be able to see it very well on the screen, but we can make sure it's circulated so that you've got an idea of what's happening. As I said, we'll be presenting some insights from the small research projects that are already funded. We will be hearing from a range of employers on what a dementia inclusive workplace looks like to them. And then in the afternoon, we'll be hearing from our lived experience panel members in a reverse panel session. So one will be focused on employees who have dementia and one will be focused on carers in the workplace. And that just leaves me to say, please continue to stay involved with us. If you would like to get involved in any of the groups that I mentioned at the start, so the Lived Experience Panel, the Stakeholder Advisory Group, or the Early Career Researcher Forum, please get in touch with us and we can facilitate introductions and support you to become part of those groups. If you have an idea that you would like to write a blog for us, again, we're more than happy to hear from you and support that process. Or if you want to just keep up to date with the information and hear more about the research funding as we launch it, these are the details to follow. And again, I just want to end by thanking everybody who's here, thanking Laura for chairing these sessions, thanking Rachel for all the work that she's been doing in the background, helping us set up and administer these sessions, and to the wider network team. Thank you again for your support. I look forward to working with you over the next 3 years.